I'm delighted to welcome you all to the British Council Literature Seminar 2015, which is jointly organised by us, the British Council, and our partners from the Centre for British Studies at Humboldt University.
Main players and beneficiaries are, we hope, and we have seen it happening in the past 30 years, the writers, the participants, readers all, but also translators, editors, and academics with a professional and personal interest in what is happening in contemporary British literature.
I tried to gather a few questions under the heading of form intention, which you will already have seen. I don't think we're here to answer those questions. I think we're here to travel them, really. We're very much here not as commentators or theorists or cultural observers, but people who write books. And that's the approach we'll be taking is that of the practitioner rather than the theorist. I'm always struck by how, when writers try to describe what it means to find form and to gather material into something that becomes work, how physically they describe it, how material their analogies are.
A panorama for and of my father, paths of chalk and water, the perpendicular highways of night creatures, ridged contours and jackknife shadows, cropped growth on compacted slopes, the press from above and below, unreachable fields where light is deflected, pearled and pooled so that it just hangs there.
And a big black gate opened up at the other end. In swam Ramu, our other performer, an orca, a killer whale, the apex predator, the most successful animal in the world's oceans, present in every ocean, in fact. Incredibly social, incredibly organized, incredibly intelligent. A wild, proud swimming animal with the tallest dorsal fin of any of the cetaceans, 2 meters high, scything through the seas of the Arctic or the Indian or the Atlantic Ocean, the signifier of this sea wolf, this extraordinary animal. But Ramu, our other performer, his dorsal fin had flopped, like a detumescent sign of his captivity. A pathetic signal, really, of the whole scenario that was being presented to us, the circus that we were being presented with. And then, of course, inevitably, Ramu jumped through a hoop, balanced a ball on his nose, and caught fish in his beak. That was my moment of apostasy. That was when I grew up. That was when I realized how shit the world was. And that's when I fell out of love with these animals, because I couldn't do anything about it.
And then they revealed that solids were not solid, that a wall was not solid, that it consisted of molecules fixed and vibrating some distance apart, as did the flesh. That solidity was really the likelihood of stuff not falling between 2 chairs, down the gaps, and that walking through the wall was not impossible, that it could be like slipping between pine trunks into a forest, which had looked from the road impermeable, but was where something lived.
I just think novels are probably quite a nice place between public and private, like they're semi-private, like especially now. I think you could write a novel and, you know, fewer people would read it than if you tweeted, probably. So people have to come and meet you in this little place that's called a novel, and I think that kind of appeals to people. So you're not entirely alone, but maybe you'll have 5 or 6 people come. Why can't novels just change? Why does it?
Well, because a literary form exists in relation to its social and material existence, and the platform for the novel is the codex. It's not the text, it's actually the physical book. Because there's no necessity for things to take the form of a volume in digital form. And indeed, young people are increasingly not reading books in that way. It'll carry on the novel form, but it's going to be like classical music or poetry.
Yeah, can I just pursue my analogy? The novel may be
is venerable, and like all, it's relatively venerable for a cultural form. It's not that old. It's only really, you know, a couple of 100 years old. So it's not that old. About the same age as the symphony, actually, which is a form that I think it's very close to. I don't think it's going to die out altogether, partly because of the extended lifespans that people are all enjoying at the moment, with concomitant problems like a crisis in care homes. The novel will probably live on in its care home for quite a long time, sopping up its children's capital and, you know, requiring a lot of social care. But I don't think it's going to die just yet. I mean, it's a great form, and the symphony hasn't died, but it no longer has real cultural centrality in that way. And I think that's all I'm saying, that in a wired and a web world, the novel cannot have cultural centrality. That's all.
I had an idea for a short story here in Berlin because the hotel doors at the Alexander Plaza Hotel are glass and they're electronic. So everybody walks close up to them and they just open a little bit.
Yes. I thought that was personal. I thought that was just the doors didn't like me.
So then you realize that you have to step back. You have to be at a distance from them for them to open. And so, as Lavinia says, you know, I had a few goes going very close, but then I realized that they didn't want me to be so close. They didn't like this intimate relationship, and the only way they'd open is if I took 3 steps back. So I'm cooking up something about that, about distance and intimacy in it, and how I would work. That's absolutely a short story. That's not a novel.